Okay. Hi. Good morning, everyone, to those who are in the room here at Tsukuba Conference Center, as well as to those online. My name is Lambino, and this morning I'm here to just give an overview, a quick overview of the session today. And we want to welcome to our session entitled "The Role of Early Careers in Shaping Sustainable Science Agenda Towards 2030 and Beyond." So this session is actually organized by the Research Institute for Land and Nature. We are a research institute based in Kyoto, Japan, and the Global Institute is basically looking at environmental sustainability, different projects on the ground, and understanding that many of the trying to enable trying to highlight the importance of humanity and nature and looking at their interconnectedness and trying and understanding that a lot of this is rooted in human culture. So, RIHN, or the Research Institute for Land and Nature, we have a program focused on building capacity for early career researchers. It's called the Terra School, which is short-term course looking for trying to build skills and transdisciplinarity for early careers. And we thought of this session as a good way of trying to discuss, the different roles that young researchers or young sustainability actors can do towards enhancing, for example, our SDG goals and looking towards sustainable science agenda. And so right now I'm gonna turn over the microphone to Christmas Uchiyama, who is actually online. So this is a hybrid conference. A number of our speakers are online and are here in the room today. But I'm going to ask Christmas Uchiyama to give us a framework and introduce the session more. Chris?
Yeah, thanks, Ria. Thanks for that opening. And everyone, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Chris Uchiyama, and I work in RIHN. So for this presentation, I would like to run you down the framing of how this session came about and the objectives of the session. So as Ria has mentioned, the title is "The Role of Early Career Researchers in Shaping Sustainable Science Agenda Towards 2030 and Beyond." And first of all, I'm just happy to be sharing with you that I'm happy to be able to be with the speakers, the early careers who are going to speak today. But the first question I'd like to pose is why early careers participation is important in shaping sustainable agenda. So I think we now have this kind of concept that collective endeavor is needed because of the pressing global issues such as global change and the recent pandemic and all other kind of changes that's happening. So there's this kind of broad appreciation and understanding that there's this potential contribution and impact that our emerging scientists or emerging researchers can bring about. And I don't want to mention like early career researchers, but I want to highlight on early careers because it should give a kind of grayscale orientation in the sense that it should not be always black and white. It should be gray. Like if you're a researcher, you cannot just take the role of a researcher. You can do other things. So that's maybe what I wanted to say or to mean with the word gray or grayscale. And why is their role important? So okay, there you go. So the early career researchers can take up a lot of roles. One is this kind of being a new idea instigator, meaning they can contribute new and novel insights based on their perspectives, their experiences, and how they perceive things. and they can also be they are always a knowledge user and a knowledge producer. So they use data, examine data, and they collect this bunch of data and package them as new knowledge or as new kind of information that other generations could use. And third, they are boundary spanner, or they can connect people across different backgrounds, across social, societal, or cultural silos. And lastly, they can be science communicator. So they can communicate and translate scientific knowledge and make it into a more understandable form or digestible form. So these four types of knowledge are very important in this Anthropocene era, in this era that we have been facing a lot of changes. And of course, for this session, the important thing we would like to talk about is how do we then break the barriers. So we know that there's a lot of role to this potential contribution, but we'd like to discuss on what are the problems or difficulties in engaging early careers. And so first, what are those barriers? And second one is, how do we break the barriers? So what are the solutions that we can bring about to break those difficulties? And third is like, we want to highlight how we, as early careers, how they can contribute impacts, not only to 2030 SDGs or 2030 agenda, but also beyond that. And lastly, what are the examples of successful roles that early careers has taken up? And these roles, we would like to know or discuss what kind of pathways that they have followed, what kind of tracks that they have used to achieve such role and continue to achieve such kind of role. So I've seen this figure, and this one is on a recent paper that was published in 2022. And this is a figure about how policies globally interact with science and how can early career make a role, or how can they potentially increase their role. So this paper basically says that with continuous recognition, training, and mentoring, we can engage early careers in not only local and national policy making, but also in global policy making. So, however, we have this question that policymaking is not always equivalent to implementation. And therefore, the SDG 17, which is the partnerships for the goals, it means that for one SDG to be achieved, it is dependent on SDG 17. So we would like to probably like get ideas from our speakers today on how we could contribute to SDG 17, or how we could strengthen the mean of implementations of all the other SDGs. So strengthening the means of implementation could be by means of partnerships and by means of connecting every partners, every stakeholders from different sectors. And a sustainable development agenda, that the one that we have been doing since 2015, like since we have the paradigm shift back then, this requires really, really long-lasting partnerships between governments, early career scientists, or the emerging scientists, private sectors, and civil society. So now, I'm really happy to have our speakers today. We have 4 speakers, and one of them, the first speaker would be Miss Hyeonju Ryu. So Hyeonju will be talking about her experience engaging with IPBES, or the International Platform for Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. And secondly, we have Dr. Leong. So Chris will be talking about an overview of hydrological research in the Oceania and Pacific region, and what are the capacity needs among scientists there. And thirdly, we have Miss MacKenzie King. So Mac will be talking about how we can make science implementable, and what are the other avenues that early careers could help aside from doing research, and how to really link science with practice. And lastly, we will hear a kind of comment or some intervention from our Dr. Mikitaro Shobayashi. And he is the program director here in RIHN, and he has a vast experience of multi-stakeholder partnerships, not only in Japan, but also at the international level. So yeah, I think that's just from me for the framing presentation. And I at this point, I will stop my screen and give the floor to Hyeonju Ryu. So Hyeonju, over to you.
All right, thank you for the introduction, and good morning, everyone. My name is Hyeonju Ryu. I'm an alumni of an early career researchers community called YES, the Young Ecosystem Services Specialist Network. So it's, in short, we call it YES Network. And I'm currently working as a data scientist in ESG field, especially on carbon emissions and businesses. Today, I'm gonna share my experience during my early career, trying to get involved in the process of shaping the sustainable agenda in the field of biodiversity and ecosystem services. And it's a morning, right? Before we start, why don't we ice break a little bit just to make it more fun? I brought an interactive thing. So I don't know if you can scan the QR code here from the session. If there is a technical problem, we can. But anyways, I can see it in the screen. But let me know if you have any problems. So you can either scan
just a minute. Let us see. It's a Mentimeter, so can we ask those in the room to do it? I think. Yeah. All right.
Or you can go to menti.com and enter this code 66627181. Or I can also share on the Zoom chat the link so you can participate. I just wanted to know who we are. It's just to start, you know. So yeah, if you're an early career researcher, less than 5 years of experience, then click ECR. If you have more than 5 years in research, you can go senior researcher. And if you're not a researcher, but you still want to know like how to engage early career research and know how to work together with them, you might come here to explore that. You can be non-researcher. And all right, people are coming up to the screen to share the code. Great. So I guess we have some students or like early career researchers. And I think we have a good mixture. Like we have some like people from other fields, non-research field, maybe some seniors. All right, cool. I guess we have, okay, since we don't have big enough time. So, okay, so many of us are researchers and I think it's a good mixture. So I guess like in the session, we can focus a bit on like what barriers we have between different groups, or we can also talk about how we can create some opportunities together. I think it'll be fun in this diverse group. All right, let's move on. So let me, be back to my story. When I started my career, I was enthusiastic and energetic, and I wanted to make a positive impact with my research. And I thought the best place to do so was the science policy interface. I don't know if you're familiar with this concept. It's in short, it's called SPI. It's a boundary where scientists and policymakers meet and work together. So policymakers, they bring societal context, and the researchers, they bring scientific evidence. And then at the interface, they exchange ideas, co-produce knowledge, and make decisions together. And then it inspires back the scientists for relevant research and governments for proper policymaking. And, you know, I was curious about this SPI, this interface, and wanted to know how it works. and see if I can engage in and contribute. And in my field, there was one very well-known interface at the global level, which is IPBES. I don't know if you heard of this, but IPBES is an intergovernmental body established in 2012. It's to strengthen the science policy dialogues for biodiversity and human well-being. So at IPBES, there are expert groups and panels on the science side, and the government members from now it's 144 countries on the policy side. So they meet at the plenary each year, and it engages some other stakeholders like indigenous groups and civil societies. And this is what IPBES does. It produces assessment reports. It offers training, identifies knowledge gaps, provides policy support, and so on. And back then, which is 5 years ago for me, I knew little of it. And ECRs like me can access to it only through a few channels. Officially, they had a fellowship program where students can work closely with experts for writing assessment reports. But it was open to a limited number of students only when a new assessment launches. So there are only few opportunities for that. So I felt there should be more opportunities for us, like participating in the in the review process of the reports, or we can also help spreading and uptake of the findings, and even much more depending on our passions, ideas, and skills. All right. So yeah, if there's no road, why not paving our own? Right. This is my favorite photograph by Erik Johansson. And I thought it'll be so inspirational to see how scientists and policymakers work together. So at Yes Network, we started our delegation program to IPBES plenaries as an observer group in 2018. We made our own curriculum, and it evolved each year. Like every year, we had online workshops for mutual learning about science policy interfaces and IPBES. And at the plenary, we had quite a packed schedule, as you can see. We had Meet the Expert. We interviewed experts, government officers, stakeholder groups, and so on. And we had our own wrap-up sessions in between to share our own insights, and we discussed how to improve our participation. And we made ourselves more visible. And the next year, we hosted a networking lunch with 80 participants, and we secured some funding for delegates from developing countries so that we can have more balanced regional backgrounds. And we helped spreading major outcomes from IPBES and share our own experiences. Like we are so loud on Twitter. We share this experience on our networks. We had seminars back in our home countries, so we were very talkative. And, we are researchers in the end, right? So we love research, and we were inspired to do research projects after the plenaries, and we wrote some multiple papers. And up until now, Yes Network continues sending delegates. We try to improve ECR engagement with more meaningful contribution, like collect and organize their voices and assessments, and we try to improve our connections with government focal points and other organizations. So it's still evolving. And here are some fun facts about that we found about ECR's engagement in SPIs. So this is based on our research during the plenaries. Surprisingly, about 90% our survey respondents said they want to participate in SPIs. So what they were eager, because they want to make societal change. They wanted to develop their expertise and expand their networks. So it's important to understand these motivations for better engaging ECRs in this field. And they said, before that, so And actually they said like 60%, a bit more than half, they said they participated in SPI. But even though we have such varied interests and capacities, their participation was not that diverse. They were limiting to mostly policy research and some stakeholder events. And they said it's hard to get involved in SPI because they don't feel confident in finding funds. They don't know how to engage and had not enough trainings on SPI. And some people thought their contributions is considered not credible. So they were not so confident in participation. And some people also said like they had like little encouragement from their supervisors or senior colleagues. I also experienced some of these, and I guess I can share some like detailed examples in the discussion. We don't have much time, so we can skip it. So we are facing crisis, right? It's a climate change, biodiversity loss. Whichever field you're in, I'm pretty sure you're facing some challenges like, to tackle. And we gotta be more proactive in shaping our own future by exploring these SPIs and reaching out to policymakers, communities, defining your own roles. And we have to help each other to better engage and share ideas. So after this conference, I hope you find your own path for a positive impact in the world. Thank you for listening. I look forward to more discussions later in the Q&A, maybe on the chat as well. And feel free to talk to me on LinkedIn or email, and you can also connect with other ECRs on Yes Network with the link. So thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Hyeonju. Yes, it's such a great presentation, and thanks for providing all these avenues and opportunities for early careers to contribute to IPBES for those who are interested in biodiversity and ecosystem services. It was such a nice kind of setup for science policy interface, and I didn't know that kind of survey you did, 90% of the ECRs really wanted to be involved in science policy interface. So there you see we can clearly see the evidence of eagerness, and let's discuss later at the Q&A. Thank you again. And at this point, I want to now introduce the second speaker. So we will have Chris. Chris is working as a hydrologist at the Linkage Project of the Research Institute of Humanity and Nature. And for now, he's going to present on the assessment of hydrological science research in Oceania and the Pacific. And he's going to talk about some of the capacity needs that our fellows from the Pacific would want to raise. So may I give the floor to you now, Chris?
Thank you, everyone. I'm Chris from the RIHN, and today I'll be talking about hydrology in the Oceania region. Okay, so just quickly run through what we do. Linkage Project looks at hydrological systems on small islands in a transdisciplinary approach. So the image below just gives a brief idea of what we're trying to do from the mountains down to the coast, not only taking the coastal areas. So what I do as early career activity, I'm the representative for the International Commission for Water Resources. That's part of the IIHS, which has 12 commissions globally. So just an outline, the background, objectives, method of what we did, a few results and discussion, and some key takeaways from the current work that we have done. So the Oceania region is made up of 21 islands here, and spans from the southern Okinawa towards French Polynesia. Keep in mind that in this work, we did not accept Australia, New Zealand, and Papua New Guinea because of the scales, continental similarities. So this gives an outline of the areas in the region. Just a background on the Oceania region, it can be divided into three parts. So you have the Micronesian region that's closer up to Japan side, and you have the Polynesian regions, including Hawaii and down to the Maoris in New Zealand, and you have the Melanesians, a little bit darker skinned people. And water resources in the areas. So the Micronesian regions are mainly made up of atolls, coral atolls. So their primary source of water will be around wells, groundwater. And the Melanesian and Polynesian islands are a little bit have a little bit higher elevation, which is able to store water and therefore have reservoirs as such. But they also have small atolls and which need groundwater supply. So what is it about the Oceania region? What makes it interesting? Because all the water resources problems are similar globally. So the main region is this climate change impacting the area. So if you can see the two images, the temperature is increasing in as the years are going on. So this is the main things that they are worried about in the Pacific, expecting sea level rise, and the image in the bottom is a guy contemplating his future. So what is the problem? In relation to hydrology, there's no collective understanding of hydrological research conducted in the area, and we just wanted to have analyze the available literature to give an overview. Because we work in the linkage project, we're thinking of the future. Oh, where can what's happening, what we are doing now with linkage in Japan, where can it be applied in elsewhere in the world? So we want to have a look at the Oceania region, if we can transfer the ideas. And also to draw the attention of water specialists or scientists to the region. So what we did was gathered literature from 3 databases. We cleaned it up and analyzed the remaining content. So hydrological literature is very few in the Oceania region. There's only about 3% in global island research. So that is a very small amount, and which means that for the 20 island nations in the Oceania region, maybe only 6 research has been done for each island. So that is very few. So majority of the work has been done by non-modeling approaches, meaning that it's just a lot has been done field survey, just going to collect data, and there's no extra work done to develop some forecasting models or something. The reason could be because the region is a developing region, so they are not interested in forecasting models. They are interested in instantaneous fixes. So gathering data just for temporary fixes. So this is what we also found, that low volumes and themes. So if you look at the image on the red box, it shows that the volume of the research is low, as well as the type of research. So yeah, that's it. And the main research has been done in Federated States of Micronesia and Fiji, more probably because the Federated States of Micronesia is has a lot of work done with the United States, and climate change is being drawn to that area. And Fiji is probably the hub of the Pacific, so they probably have more data that can be worked with. But Tokelau Islands is non-existent in the literature. So here's the important part that we wanted to look at. So we look at the collaboration efforts between different researchers. So we group them as foreigners or regional-based foreigners, or whether you're an Oceania citizen, scientist. So if we look at the yellow box, we can see that where foreigners are involved, there's a lot of work being done. But between foreigners in the region or Oceania citizens, the collaboration efforts aren't so good. If you can look at the publications also, that we see the research between foreigners, the rate of publication is high, but when we look at the two yellow boxes on the right, we can see that the single publication between regional foreigner and then Oceania citizen, and or between locals only. And the publications, where the publications were made. So although the volume is low, publications have been made in quality journals. The problem is the Oceania citizens are not publishing work in quality journals. They are more often in predatory journals. So here we see first authors, the distribution of where the authors are mainly populate. So we can see that Oceania citizens, for first and second author, their contributions are low. But on the third author, it's quite higher than the first two. This is because when projects are done, the Oceania citizens are mainly part of the surveying team, just a technical support or data, just writing data, but they're not part of the main principal investigator. So this is long. Just global scale interest is this is some key takeaways. I want to draw your attention to the Oceania region development status. Yeah. So let's continue with that. And here's the future outlook. To address the long, the main point I want to look at is the one in purple, is to address the longevity issues. So we saw that there's a lot of projects rather than building a body of research. So the projects are good in the region. The problem is the longevity, how long it lasts, is a monumental task that's been faced in the region. For example, let me give you a short example. So they made a project down somewhere in the Micronesian region, and they went and draw water from one village to take it to another village. So the village that has water has sort of like a river. So they were drawing streams, and they were drawing pipes to another village that didn't have water. And the project guys were always experiencing people, the villagers with water were cutting the pipes. And they went and they investigated, like, why are you youths? Why are you cutting the pipes? And they said, like, oh, because when there were no pipes before, the girls from the other village used to come and collect water here, and we used to have a court in it. We used to be dating, but since you drew water there, they are not coming anymore. So we are cutting the pipe. So the idea was good. The implementation was not so good. So which draws the attention to science nowadays. Early career scientists need to look at transdisciplinary approaches. That is, I think, a very important message that I want to put out today. And the plea to the global community for professional scientists, please take your expertise down to the Oceania region. There's a lot to be learned from there. And the Oceania people are very generous, so you might get your piece of real estate property in the Pacific. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, that's very interesting presentation. And I think, yeah, you gave a kind of example of how important transdisciplinarity is. And it's a great contribution from the Linkage Project, the adaptive governance of multi-resource space on small coral reef island settings. So thank you for that. Let's continue to discuss
Thank you very
later.
much.
Thank you. Now, I'd like to call on Miss MacKenzie King. So MacKenzie is working with the ImpactHub based in Thailand. And yeah, she's going to talk about her experiences of how her career has changed from like the really basic science to what she's doing now. So I think without further ado, I'll just want to give the floor to you. Over to you, MacKenzie.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Let me share my screen. Can everybody see my screen? All good? Yeah, so like Chris mentioned, so my name is MacKenzie and I'm originally from the US, but I've been in Thailand for about 4 years or so. And in essence, I think my presentation might be a little bit different than everybody else because I've left, in essence, research science, but I've brought a lot of lessons with me from that time where I was working in neuroscience. But mainly I left research because I saw the accelerating deterioration of planetary boundaries and the effects on the environment and on the human condition. And so now I work to take what we already know and increase uptake through policy, through popular awareness, and also ground level implementation, sort of along the lines of climate action, biodiversity protection, and sustainable consumption and production. So just a little bit about me. I am currently the regional coordinator for ImpactHub Network, and I'm also doing a few other things. And so I wanted to mention some of the other things that I've been doing, because I think I've had kind of a bounce around in my leaving of science, trying to figure out my way. And in essence, that's where I wanted to share some of the key lessons that I've learned both on purpose and the hard way. So just a quick bit about ImpactHub. ImpactHub has been a catalyst for entrepreneurial action since 2005, and we're working towards a regenerative economy that accelerates the positive change towards social and environment. And we're, a global network of entrepreneurial communities, places, programs that design and deliver mostly entrepreneurial support programs, but we also do convening and we build collaborations towards climate action and diversity, equity, inclusion. These are two pillars that are underlying everything that we do. And one thing I think that's most fascinating is we are locally rooted and globally connected. And I wanted to mention this because what Chris said is really important. We need people that are across many different sectors, but we also need people who are locally rooted in ecosystems and understand those complex social dynamics and power dynamics that are at play. And I also wanted to mention we have two in Japan, one in Tokyo and one in Kyoto. And here's a quick highlight on one of our active programs called the Climate Solution Lab that's looking to address city-based climate change adaptations through entrepreneurship. So if you know anyone in Kuala Lumpur, Jakarta, and Taipei, please have them apply. So on to the first lesson, because this took me a while to get to. And I think that's really important to note. So the journey itself doesn't have to be straight. I think we're given a very linear idea of what you can do in science. And I just wanted to challenge everyone first and foremost to take a look at all of those catalysts and those signposts that are all around you all the time, because those can and should alter your direction. And it can be quite important. For me, this looked like studying neuroscience and then being very tripped up by migration and conflict, going and building programs that were training students in humanitarian skills to implement projects in Greece, in refugee camps. And that was then a big problem of going, oh my gosh, climate migration, that's a huge thing. We need to work on the climate and environment. And then planetary boundaries became a huge problem for me. And so I realized we need to act on so many different levels. So I started working in universities and entrepreneurship centers. And now, in essence, I also work in systems change and try to address the power dynamics that are at play. And I mention these things because this has contributed to some of the unexpected ways that I've been able to succeed in small ways in each of these transitions, because we need knowledge translators and boundary spanners, like Chris was saying at the beginning. there is a need for collaboration between young scientists and social innovators, and also between fields. Again, we need that transdisciplinarity. And so we need people to be able to speak different languages of thematic elements and also in those kind of rote skills. You need to be able to read the science and also speak to community. And I think this is something that we heard about before. Obviously said much better about the science policy interface. And I wanted to mention not just IPBES, but I also wanted to mention the Asia Pacific Network for Global Change Research, because there's also some programs for early career scientists and capacity building. And Christmas used to work at APN, so you can ask her about that in the Q&A. But we also need a collaboration between science and research and entrepreneurs and entrepreneur support organizations. I think one really interesting example of this was the SEED program, which was a collaboration between UNAP, IUCN, UNDP, and also the government of Germany. And this was really taking grassroots initiatives that were happening, entrepreneurs, and supporting people to be able to do social and environmental change and make that change more inclusive. And then there's also science and society and that translation that's happening. And this is an example that I actually work on in Western Thailand called Our Land, where we work with schools and also tour groups as well. It's ecotourism, but it's grounded in human-wildlife coexistence research and piloting innovations in how to live in harmony with nature. And another lesson is that success is relative. And I think sometimes we forget that when we do get caught in impact factors and getting your publications in journals. And that is, like, I don't mean to take that down, because that's really important. And the quality of new information that's coming out is of the utmost importance, but it's definitely not the only thing that we need to judge ourselves on and that we need to promote. So if we're working with early careers, or if you are an early career, there are many ways to find success as a researcher. And there are many ways that you can define impact and what that success looks like. And I wanted to quickly share a story because I was actually working on a project last week in Laos, and one of my friends and colleagues was telling me that she was allergic to milk. And so in the US, a very common breakfast is cereal with milk. That's what everyone eats. It's like synonymous with breakfast food. And so she ended up eating cereal with orange juice, and my American culture brain just went, that is so disgusting. I can't imagine eating cereal with orange juice. And that's all she ever knew. And she's like, I can't imagine eating cereal with milk. That sounds disgusting to me now. And it just goes to show you that there are things that you normalize culturally that are absolutely absurd, that make no sense. And these are things that we need to root out. And we're well positioned to root them out as people who are trained in science and research. But in doing that, everything gets messy. It's harder to find those signposts, and it's harder to understand what we're after, because these are building fields, right? Laying down a new road, you have really no ability to see. And so we have to train our eyes to see what those catalyzing factors are. But it will get better. And in essence, like if you've ever cleaned your room, it always gets dirtier before it gets clean. It's part of the process. Trust the process. And last but not least, I think this is for everyone in the room, early careers and otherwise, is that just like there are these small cultural norms that we've come to accept as fact, that's how all the systems in the world are. And, the economy is something that was made by people. It can be changed by people. And so I think we're again often conditioned into one type of progression. And it's understandable, because people who are teaching us in universities are usually tenured researchers that have gone on that path. But ultimately, it is really our duty to challenge why that is the norm and how those norms came to be and also the power dynamics at play. And it's important for us to take that and move that into all things that we're looking at, of who actually is defining what knowledge matters, and how do these actually solidify power dynamics in the world and create some of the problems that we have today, and how can we flip that problem tree into a solution tree by changing and seeing and uprooting those norms. So with that, I will end my presentation. I think I'm out of time, but please feel free to reach out to me at my email, MacKenzieKing@impacthub.net. Find me on LinkedIn, all the good stuff. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, MacKenzie. Yeah, that's wonderful. I think one of the takeaway I really got from the presentation is that, making something normalized, something that you're not used to, but you normalizes it. And I think, it's such a nice lesson for all the other early careers out there to kind of explore the path that you're comfortable with, and not necessarily go with preconceived notions that's existing out there. So I'm sure that there's a lot of takeaways, and we should probably be discussing it again. And I just want to remind everyone that now it's like past 11:30, but we really have time for discussion later. But at this point, I want to highlight that we have a commentary that will be given by Dr. Mikitaro Shobayashi. So from all the three presentations from our early careers, who really provided really outstanding examples and kind of inspiring stories, and telling us at what track they are now. At this point, I'd like to call on Dr. Shobayashi to give us some comments or some interventions. And probably, it would be nice takeaway also for the speakers. So I give the floor to you now. Over to you, Dr.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chris. Are you seeing my PowerPoint? Maybe not.
You just need to maybe make it play the percent one. At the moment, we see some of the slides.
Are you seeing?
Yes, I think that's better. Thank you, Dr. Shobayashi.
Okay, so I would like to join Chris for appreciating the very wonderful three presentations made by Hyeonju, Chris, and MacKenzie. And I was really impressed, and I was very much inspired. So what I would like to try to do today is to share with you some thoughts on the policy and science interlinkages. And also what I would like to do is to try to connect my comments on these three wonderful presentations to my thoughts as much as possible. So before getting into the details, let me introduce myself. As I fully agree with MacKenzie that the journey doesn't have to be straight. And actually, my journey has never been straight. I have an undergraduate degree in irrigation and water resource engineering, and I changed my area slightly from water to soil mechanics in my master's. And then I took another master for social science for public decision making. And eventually I got my PhD in agricultural economics. So, and then I spent around 12 or 13 years in total for the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries. And I spent 4 years in Washington working for the World Bank. And I spent again 4 years working for OECD in Paris. And also I spent 3 years in Shiga Prefecture government, which is close to Kyoto. to work for the Shiga Prefecture government. And then after spending 25 years in the public decision-making arena, I decided to quit from that job, and I decided to join academics, starting my academic career from Gakushuin Women's College for 16 years. And then I came to RIHN last year. And I have been working on the management on land and water resources with a special focus on agriculture. And then also I completely agree with MacKenzie saying that the system could be changed. And in fact, policy systems have been changed quite often with different mechanisms and different powers and factors. So these are just some illustrative examples on how policies could be changed. For example, sometimes our policy system could be changed by the influence of the meta policy system, or sometimes policy has been changed with the self-innovation and so on. And then science and policy linkages, they are really dependent on context. And as I said, I used to work for international organizations, two types of international organizations. One is World Bank, which is very much focusing on global South issues. And I used to work for OECD, focusing on very much global North issues. And also I work for the ministry for some time, national government. And also I used to work for local government as well. And in each case, policymakers have different values, norms, and beliefs. And also we have to remind ourselves that policy-related actors have been drastically widened, which has been shown by, for example, Hyeonju and also MacKenzie. And the presentation made by Hyeonju gave us a very, very good example on how international forums focusing on global issues, in her case, that is IPBES, has been working, and how early career researchers could play roles in that type of forums. And also the presentation made by Chris gave us a good example how important it would be to incorporate national government and local government to implement research-based, science-based policies. And what I would like to convey today the most is, in most cases, policymakers are facing two fundamental issues, which are uncertainties and value conflicts. And again, policy agendas also reflect context. Therefore, policymakers are facing different types of value conflict and uncertainties. So this is well-known, the concept of wicked problems and tame problems. And is obviously sustainable science belongs to wicked problems. And yeah, as I said, I used to work for four different types of organizations, and in each organization, they do have different. They have to face different value conflict and uncertainties, and also. In addition, policymakers are also influenced by actors from different policy systems. For example, in the case of agriculture's policy system, it is being influenced by fiscal policy system, the international trade policy system, and the decentralization policy system, and of course, environmental policy system, which makes the policy making really complicated. And then what are the roles of researchers in addressing issues associated with wicked problems? of course, reducing uncertainties by science would be a major role which science community should play, and it is well illustrated by the presentation made by Chris. And preparing policy options for each objective. This is another area where research community, science community could contribute to, and this was also well described by taking the example of IPBES by Hyeonju, and also participating in objective settings with science-based options. And this is a very much tricky one. So I am not quite sure whether research communities or researchers could be willing to jump into the value conflict issues. And I personally feel that I would like to encourage them to jump into this issue as well. But on the other hand, as MacKenzie expressed, it may be difficult for researchers to produce high quality paper if they jump into this arena. But on the other hand, I think it's worth trying. And also exploring measures that could bridge the gap between policy and research. The importance of this idea was again stressed by Hyeonju and MacKenzie as well. And also it was stressed by Chris that the importance of transdisciplinary approach should be stressed. And also drawing attention to the agendas which are not shed light on. This part may be also related to some comments made by especially made by MacKenzie in her last part of the presentation. So in conclusion, I am really impressed and inspired by early career researchers to try to make themselves have impact on the societal changes and global changes. And I'm really encouraged to see those kinds of activities. And I think what we as a person whose life may not be long enough, what we could do is to encourage those young career researchers and tell them that policy and science linkage arena is really something for which you may get some professional values from it. So thank you very much, and looking forward to the further discussions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shobayashi. Yeah, thank you for the wisdom and the encouragement you gave to us early careers, and for giving a little bit of light to the intricacies that's there about in the arena of policy and science. So in all the 4 presentations, we have highlighted the importance of raising awareness and importance of providing resources and training to early careers. And also, we have heard from Dr. Shobayashi about how important it is to enter these discussions in addressing societal challenges and addressing societal challenges through policymaking or through changing the policies or the business as usual scenario itself. So thank you for those thoughts. And now I will give the floor to my colleague, Alimata. So Alimata is working with the Fair Frontiers project here at RIHN, and she will be facilitating the Q&A. So as for me, I will be also happy to help with the facilitation later online. But yeah, I think for at this moment, I just want to thank all the speakers, and I hope we could discuss further later. And yeah, this has been Chris Uchiyama, and yeah, thank you. I give the floor to you now, Alimata.
Hello, everyone. Well, that was very interesting. We had very interesting presentation from our speakers. So as Christmas said, I'm Alimata, and I also work at the Research Institute for Humanity and Nature. And well, yeah, today I'll be facilitating the Q&A session, but just like a short talk about whatever has been discussed today. So you had very interesting presentation from 4 speakers, and our first speaker, Hyeonju, talked a lot about her own experience, like on how I feel she knew what she wanted and she went for it. So I think this is like a very good example for all early career researchers. Like, so go after your dreams and you can make it happen. Like, she's like the proof that if you know what you want, like you can make it happen. Even though the opportunities were really small, she found a way to be contributing to the IPBES. So yeah, please, early career researchers here, if you know what you want, go after your dreams. And you also had a very interesting presentation from Chris. He talked about the hydrological research in the Oceania. And well, obviously there are not many research there, and there are like few problems. Like, first of all, the locals are not really involved in the research. And obviously that was really important. Like, that is an important factor, like for any development in that region. And one of his point was that like locals, they were not really involved in publishing. Even though they were contributing a lot during the research, they were not like really involved in publishing, and they were not main authors. So which is an issue. And yeah, like there is a need to find a way to also involve local researchers in that sense. And also one very important thing was transdisciplinarity. So like we saw from his research that transdisciplinarity is really important if you want to implement a project. So you have to consider like stakeholders. And also MacKenzie gave us very inspirational talk, I feel, because a little bit related to Yeonju talk. I feel like she's encouraging people to have a wider view in general. And you don't have to stick to something. Like, if you're doing something and you feel like one day I want to try something new, I can be more impactful in another field, like you can go for it. So I think that was a very important advice for early career researchers. And lastly, we saw that Dr. Shobayashi, he has a very nice path, and that is something we can all follow. He was involved in many different institutions, like international institutions and research. Like, so this means you can be impactful in many different fields. So in general, I think, yeah, we can have a lot of takeaways from today as early career researchers. And now I'd like to invite you all to ask questions. And like we have like about 40 minutes. So please feel free to ask questions on site, or you can also use the Q&A function here. Yeah, thanks a lot. And yeah, please, let's discuss.
Okay, hi, this is Ria from the site in Tsukuba. And I have a mic here. I just wanted to express to the people in the room, we are open for question and answers. So if you have any questions, please just raise your hand and I can give this mic to you, and any of our speakers can respond to that as well. Or comments, of course. Yeah. And also on their online participants, feel free to just raise your hand and have some question and answer. Okay, I see Alimata, I see one hand here. I'm gonna give it to Kontasa. And for the others, please try to think, and we really want to engage and have your thoughts.
Thank you very much. Hello. So I'm Yasuhisa Kondo from RIHN, and also I'm acting as a representative of the Young Academy of Japan in this Tsukuba conference. So I ask a question to Chris, you? Yeah, thank you very much. So you raise a very important argument on the scientific diaspora of the local Oceania researchers. They are going to the western countries to get PhD, and that makes the gap between the local and external researchers. So I'm asking you, how we can change this situation? What is the first step of action, and how in recent these days the situation is changing, or for better situation, or worse?
Thank you very much. That is a clear-cut question. So I think we need to empower the oceanic citizens. So it's one thing bringing Oceania citizens to come and study overseas, but it's another thing developing the curriculum in the region. So at the moment, for hydrological sciences, there's no a professional development in the region. So what I think is we need to empower them in the region and train them in the region, because far too often you have students come over from the region, they study overseas, either they stay here or in the US or wherever, or otherwise they go back and they have this brain drain. So often they go back to the region and they either go mainly to Australia or New Zealand. So you are helping bringing them and training them here, but it would be better if you develop the curriculum down in the region, and there were mass amounts of students going to study at the university that specifically designed for a particular subject. What I'm saying is that you can bring in 2 students to come and study overseas, but you can train 100 in there, and they could continue the work that could be done as the same way. So that's my thinking. We need to empower them in the region rather than bringing them out this side.
Yeah, thank you very much. The empowerment is very important. I request one comment. So I say the notes, but actually they are going to Australia and New Zealand. Yeah, so that's a problem is you can share with the other so-called global south countries. So, for example, in this conference, there is a delegation from the Global Young Academy, GYA, and they are also from Africa and other places in the world. So you can share your comment with them, and I will communicate with them also. And that is very important to share this issue, empowerment of early careers and students with other people in the world, and with shares the same concern. Thank you very much.
I have another question here. Maybe it would be good if you can also say your name and your affiliation so that everybody can know.
Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Tesfai. I came from Ethiopia. I am just an assistant professor teaching university. So I am really very happy to see such kind of presentations for presenters, especially from Chris, Maxena, and others are really impressive for me. Saying this one, I have some suggestion or regarding kind of comments, maybe for Chris. So is there any just a kind of what the the network have challenged
the challenge, what kind of challenge still be faced the network, and how did you face or what is new? Is there any mechanism or opportunity for developing country to have a good or new partnerships in your programs, in the network program, the YES network program? This is the first one. So I think just say I'm just very happy to see such kind of network, such kind of news from the young researchers as well as from the well-experienced researchers. Saying this one, thank you very much.
Thank you. I think that is for the question, or the comment is directed to Young, to Hyeonju. Yeah, for the yes. Please go ahead. You're muted, Hyeonju.
All right, thank you for the comment. I guess I think our experience not just limited to early career researchers. I think it's like applied to all different generations, like even the experienced researchers. And I hope my experience can inspire like within experience, but also between generations, like even the younger ones. Because like once we also try to communicate with the younger generation, because as in my generation, I think we have very good position as the bridge between the one above and the one below, because we just passed the one below and we have very good connection with the one above. So we try to communicate what we've learned from IPBES and the concept of the contribution of nature to human well-being and ecosystem services for the generation, the younger generation, like for teenagers. So we wrote a small scientific article for young people. There is a journal like called Frontiers for Young Minds. So I think these kind of activities can inspire each other even more, and we can make a transformative change together so that we can actually tackle what we have to tackle. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that okay? All right. Any others? For those who can relate to being an early career, or maybe even not an early career, or any in different stages of your career, the speakers shared about science policy, any challenges that you might be feeling, or any thoughts or any tips or advice, please, we want to encourage, especially those in the room. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Okay, so maybe while some people are still thinking here, I'd like to ask a question, and I want to direct this to, I think, MacKenzie, specifically about the role of entrepreneurs. You had in your slide, you expressed the importance of how science and innovators can connect more. I'm wondering what is the best way to engage them or connect them better? I know that I'm very familiar with the ImpactHub, and I know that I know about the work that you do, but what else? For those of us who are in the universities, for instance, or in institutes, how can we reach out, and how can we make it more deliberate, this type of interactions between innovators also from their end reaching out to scientists?
Thank you so much for that question. I mean, this is like the really exciting stuff for me, and for the job that I get to do. And I think that there's the intermediaries that become really important when it comes to reaching entrepreneurs. And there's so many types of entrepreneurs, and really their access is quite variable. So I would say like the key, like first thing that universities could be doing is reaching out to like incubators and accelerators that are working with larger cohorts of entrepreneurs, especially social entrepreneurs, so that are working towards those social and environmental change. One of the things that we did at ImpactHub was we've been working to integrate climate action and circularity into all of our incubation and acceleration programs. So these are programs that are going to be doing coaching, peer support, technical advisory for entrepreneurs, and making sure that fundamental to all of those teachings are also an understanding about climate change, about biodiversity, about sustainable consumption and production, and making sure that that underlies. So that's kind of the first thing. And I think the second thing is to actually start to find and seek out communities that are more sort of startup-y and techy, because I feel like that is in and of itself its own silo. It's hard to kind of get your foot in the door, but it's really important for both the research side of things to get your foot in the door, to be saying like, hey, climate tech, this is actually not a solution that's going to be working, and also to go, hey, this is something where we need to be more inclusive. This is something where we need to be integrating with more sociological understandings and be shifting power dynamics, because we don't want to see the current move towards climate action not be integrated with climate justice and not be integrated with people who are most vulnerable. So being able to both kind of integrate with the organizations that are working with entrepreneurs, the support, and then also integrate with the communities that are doing sort of startup and tech stuff, that would be a little bit harder. I'd say these are the two kind of main areas that would be really helpful to reach entrepreneurs.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think you mentioned the importance of these having these boundary spanners, right? And definitely organizations such as ImpactHub and YES as well is a boundaries spanner, I think, as a network. And well, maybe just additional information to our participants here. RIHN, our institute, is actually a secretariat hub for another big network of sustainability scientists and actors called Future Earth, which is a global network of scientists, researchers, and actors doing different research, trying to drive the agenda and trying to also navigate and help facilitate the science policy interface. So yeah, I think what you mentioned, and also the different networks, the different groups that are sort of in between trying to bridge these different aspects are quite important. Thanks. So how about online? Any other, do we have some questions?
Yeah, online participant, please feel free to use the Q&A. I think so
Hi,
far.
okay. Sorry, there's another hand raised here. Maybe you can just, thank you. Can I ask you to just sit down here, please? Yeah, all right.
Hello, everyone. I am Shaima Inani. I am professor of microbiology and immunology in Egypt. I'm sorry I joined the session too late. I missed most of the presentations. But really, I have a comment about this topic because as I was a member I am now a member in the Global Young Academy of Science and a member in the World Academy of Science, and I was Egyptian ambassador of the Next Einstein Forum. So because I am a member in these all organizations, actually I understand lately that we are, as scientists and as a researcher, we have a huge responsibility for reaching science to the society. Actually, we in the recent years, I started to implement most of the sustainable development goals on my research. So I actually try to make my research more attractive and to help people. I am a microbiologist, so I am focusing on the infectious disease. So I try to achieve the sustainable development goal number 3 for improving the health of people and improving the quality of life. That's why I think that we should make our research more attractive, more applicable, to be useful for the society, to help people to increase awareness of the usual people or normal people about the importance of science. So that's only my comment, and I'm sorry that I joined too late. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing. We appreciate your thoughts. And even I think we have a recording of this, and we can share it on the website and the webpage later on. You can access. Right. Thank you. Any other thoughts? Maybe if there are no further thoughts, maybe we can do a quick round of from our speakers. Just what is your final final comment? One sentence or two sentences in terms of maybe lessons that you want to share with all of us, and then we can close the session if that is okay with everybody. Yeah. Can I ask Hyeonju if we can do that round? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Because the topic of the session is about how we can contribute to shaping the future agenda, I want to talk about like what we have to do forward for the better engagement. From my experience, we see three major challenges. One is funding. Of course, it's always the funding, right? But I don't wanna complain just on fundings like nagging, but it's more about we have to be smart in finding the funding, because we have to remember we need the fund not just to for the luxury, but it's more about the regional balance. Because of the biased funding opportunities, we only hear voices from certain regions. So that's why we had to actively search fundings for those underrepresented people, and we have to work together on that. And so that's one way forward. But the second challenge we have is the information limitation, which is very surprising because we live in the world of a lot of information. But actually, those information about how to get involved or what to do and what opportunities out there, it's quite limited to a certain number of people. Once you are in one loop, it's so easy to get the information. You get the notifications, all the newsletters, and so on. But if you're not in the loop yet, it's hard to find those opportunities. So we have to overcome these information barriers. And I think the third one is the trainings. Like from our IPBES experience, we heard a lot from these experts and other government officers saying, oh, it's so difficult to communicate. We have to know each other's norms, like how we think, and because policy side and science side, they have different experiences, different priorities, different languages. So we have to understand in the early stage. Since we're young, since when you're in early career stage, we have to actively learn how to communicate with each other. And I think there's not many trainings for that. So we need to have more opportunities on that. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Funding, information gap, and trainings and capacity for for doing these things. Yeah. A quick round from MacKenzie and then Chris. And then
Yeah, thank you. Well, honestly, I want to echo what Hyeonju just said, because I think that was all very relevant and important. And I wanted to say one of the things that really stuck out to me about your presentation was about the survey that was talking about the different findings from young scientists and the challenges, and that the lack of encouragement by senior colleagues and the credibility aspect. And I think that really needs to change from a systemic level at university settings. We need to be actually training early careers for a variable type of success. And so we need to educate ourselves about those opportunities and make sure that from every level of trickling down of information, that it becomes more inclusive to different types of ideas and networks. And that being said, if you aren't as an early career getting that type of support, it's out there, and it is important for you to keep knocking on doors and cold call people, reach out to people on LinkedIn until you find someone that is there to support you, because they're out there. And honestly, one thing about being early career that is so nice is that when you reach out to people, when you email them, call them, send them a DM, they'll respond and they will be helpful because you are young and you are curious and you're doing your thing. So ask for help, because if you're not getting it, it's out there. You just have to keep asking. So that's my final reflection.
Thank you very much. Chris Leong.
Thank you. My comment or advice would be bold in your research and be bold in your networking. Often early career scientists will shy away when doing research. So when you're doing your research, just think up some crazy thing and try and do it. For example, there's a Swiss guy. He did some mathematical formulas with the stars and applied it to hydrology, and they thought it was crazy and they rejected all his papers. But then they found out later it was a major breakthrough. So that is one thing, to be bold in your research, and you don't always have to follow the norm. You can always find something that is off track. Just recently in Africa, I think a girl who won one of the best awards, she discovered something that was not normal. So, for example, in cities, because of the concrete and all, the surface flow is always faster in the cities. But when she did her research with a very simple approach, she found that no, it doesn't have to be. So that is one, be bold in your research. And networking, reach out. There's a lot of associations. For example, I tried out with the International Association for Hydrological Sciences, and I've got to meet a lot of the top hydrologists in the world and learned a lot. And I got a lot of funding to travel around the world at conferences. And yeah, so I think you need to reach out, open up yourself to the community of your respective disciplines. And please remember, transdisciplinary. Don't hide in your own niches. Join up together. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Very well said, Chris. And so with that, we'd like to thank everyone, our speakers, our panelists, our participants here in the room and online. Thank you very much for joining this session, and we want to close it officially, and we wish you all a nice day. Thank you.